Hello and welcome to the Emerging India series. I'm Shireen Bhan. As we flag off the 9th year of the awards, we continue our endeavour of putting the spotlight on some of the country's best SMEs. Our theme this year is to bring you stories of SMEs and mid-sized companies that have overcome the tough times to emerge bigger and better. In this episode, we're looking at a space that's seeing growing interest from businesses as well as consumers, environmentally friendly or green businesses.
Lack of proper procedures for disposal of garbage, polluting factories and vehicles, and untreated industrial wastewater. Some common sights across a developing country like India. A recent study by the World Bank states that environmental degradation through pollution is costing India $80 billion a year. On the other hand, green development experts believe that India's current situation places it at a unique vantage point for harnessing green technology to further its economic growth. In this episode, we'll take a look at two Indian companies that are working towards preserving and protecting the environment.
Here's a look at Adsorbent Carbons, an SME that is one of the first companies in India to manufacture and export activated carbon.
Established in 1995, Adsorbent Carbons uses coconut shells and wood as raw materials to manufacture activated carbons. A form of carbon processed to be riddled with small, low-volume pores that increase the surface area available for absorption of chemical reactions. Activated carbons are used in a multitude of industries and applications.
Adsorbent Carbon manufacture activated carbon from coconut shell charcoal. The mother company of Adsorbent Carbon is VVD & Sons Private Limited, which is based at Chennai. They manufacture coconut oil from coconut. And we are the market leader in Tamil Nadu, and we are present in the South India. Out of the shell coming out of the coconut, this has been carbonized and activated carbon is being manufactured. This activated carbon has an absorbent characteristics. It's an organic chemical. It does not react with any material. Wherever anything to be absorbed, they use this activated carbon, which is inactive. It does not reactive.
A brainchild of Niranjan Kani, the idea to set up Adsorbent Carbons came from the abundance of coconut shells lying around at their coconut oil manufacturing factory.
We used to keep this coconut shell in our factory, which is a waste material. I would say 2 or 3 times there was a major fire accident in the factory of the coconut oil. So we were finding it so difficult to dispose of the shell. And then they said it is better we can make charcoal, and we were making charcoal and we were exporting to Sri Lanka for another activated carbon manufacturer in Sri Lanka. After some time there was a LTT problem in between Sri Lanka and India, so we could not transport that charcoal to Sri Lanka. So we didn't know what to do with the charcoal. So we had some idea about this from some IIT and we started in the early 90s. And we are the pioneer in this industry of manufacturing activated carbon in India.
Every business comes with its share of challenges, and so also for Adsorbent Carbons. Since they were a pioneer in the business, the challenges were that much tougher.
One of the major challenges was the technology and selling to European and US market. So we are the pioneer and we know how to manufacture all this material. So I was traveling widely to Sri Lanka, Philippines, and I understood the technology. And some technical consultant, we upgraded the technology and we started manufacturing global grade. And those time, India is not known for activated carbon. So none of the Europeans, US people were willing to buy carbon from Indian origin. And then I exhibit our products in European exhibitions, and we started getting inquiries, and we started to export the market. We had inherent advantage of the coconut shell of Indian origin, which can manufacture certain special grades of activated carbon, especially gas phase industries and gold carbon industries. There they were using predominantly Sri Lankan and Indian origin charcoal based activated carbon. This activated carbon has become now as a commodity. Now we would like to go for a speciality of carbon. Like there are many impregnated carbon, carbon blocks, and high grade CTC carbon. So we are going to focus more on a specialty carbon which can sell at a higher price, and it can, the performance of the product could be much better than the regular carbon, and that's where we are going to focus on a specialty carbon to increase the sales realization, and also this product can give a higher performance in the application.
On that note, it is time for us to take a short break, but on the other side we meet another company that's running a green business. Stay tuned. You're watching the Emerging India Awards. Welcome back. You're watching the Emerging India series, where we're profiling Indian SMEs and mid-sized companies that are doing a stellar job in their sectors while taking care of Mother Nature along the way. Now, the mid-sized company that we profile on this episode is AtteroRecycling, and here's their story.
Have you ever wondered what happened to that old desktop computer which you used many years ago? You either sold it to a computer dealer or to the Raddiwala, but where did it end up? Mostly in a landfill. But companies like AtteroRecycling are ensuring that this scenario now changes.
Attero is India's largest electronic waste asset management company. What that means is we collect end-of-life assets like end-of-life computers, televisions, mobile phones, and so on and so forth. Part of these assets are refurbished and sold for reuse, right, through our sort of retail channel. Whatever cannot be refurbished is recycled using the patent-pending technologies that Attero has developed to extract pure gold, pure silver, pure platinum out of which is sold back on the commodities market. To do this, Attero has set up India's largest collection network. So today we collect end-of-life assets from more than 400 cities, both from retail consumers as well as from OEMs and large companies. We have 21 OEMs signed up with us, which include Samsung, Videocon, Wipro, HCL, you name it, and more than 400 corporates, and then the retail consumers. So we collect end-of-life assets from all these sources, bring them to our processing facilities, and either refurbish or recycle them, and then the outputs are sold back in the either commodities market or to the retail consumers. So the idea was actually Rohan's, who's a co-founder. He had an old laptop which he didn't know what to do with, and started more as an environmental concern about disposal of end-of-life electronic assets. When we started researching this idea, we did realize that if the right technology is developed, then there's a pretty viable business model to emulate.
Being an IT and tech-driven company, innovation in achieving the most cost-effective and environmentally friendly way to recycle e-waste was a major challenge for Attero. Add to that the presence of a huge informal sector and the difficulties of marketing their services, and Attero had its work cut out for themselves. But not one to give up easily, Nitin and his team worked hard to overcome these hurdles.
IP is the base of the entire business model that we built at Attero. So one of the key challenges we faced when we started the company back in 2008 is how do we innovate and develop this IP? The other key challenge was the marketing message. How do you communicate to the right stakeholders in the ecosystem that disposing of end-of-life assets is the right thing to do in the formal sector of this country? Even today, a large portion of our end-of-life assets are actually disposed of in the informal sector. The kabadi walos who come to your house to pick stuff up, right? Now all of these people they also dismantle and recycle end-of-life assets, but do it in a very rudimentary manner, causing a lot of harm to the environment. And for example, they use cyanide for extracting some gold and silver from printed circuit boards, right? Copper cables are burnt in open air to extract copper, right? Mostly women and children are working in these. So all of these are hazardous sort of environments to recycle end-of-life assets. And even from a social perspective, people who are working in this are exposed to a lot of health problems. Challenges were the first, the technology challenge. We did dedicate a lot of resources, both in terms of financial resources, manpower resources, at the start of the company to ensure that we tackle the technology problem. It took us some amount of time to tackle it, but over a period of since we started over a period of 2 years odd, we were able to sort of figure out the technical solution to this problem. Also in the world, we are the only company which today can recycle end-of-life assets and extract pure metals out of it at a cost which is 1/10 of anybody else existing in the world. The marketing challenge we did by sort of by a lot of off the sort of below the line marketing events, right? We went out, talked to corporates, both OEMs and SMEs and other corporates as well, trying to educate them about the hazards of electronic waste, what the regulation talks about. The regulation, the new regulation that came in May 2013 did talk about sort of EPR, that is extended producer liability. Responsibility. What that means is Apple's responsibility on this laptop does not end when the warranty ends. Apple's responsibility ends when it is end of life, taken back and recycled properly. So we did a lot of education to our OEM partners, to our sort of other corporates that we work with, and consumers as well. So we recently started another campaign called Clean in India, roughly 1.5 years back, wherein we're doing a lot of collection drives at school, colleges, societies, and companies as well. Right? There's been an enthusiastic response from people, and we collect a significant amount of tonnages from these take-back drives as well.
With over 260 employees, AtteroRecycling's turnover for the financial year 2012-2013 stood at 70 crores. This is all set to get a boost with multiple new opportunities on the horizon.
So Attero today is looking at a global electronic waste recycling market. Right? Today we are from a presence perspective, we are present only in India to recycle end-of-life assets. We are now expanding internationally and setting up these plants that I talked about, mini refineries of 2,000 ton per annum, which only we can do in the world today. We are setting these up in developed countries. First one is coming up in Mexico, next one is coming up in Ireland, and so on and so forth. So the market that we are tackling is first the global PCB recycling market, which is broadly a $50 billion market that we are trying to tackle. And then within India, we are trying to make sure that we are sort of expanding our collection network and collecting more and more in these end-of-life assets and processing them as required.
On that note, it is time for us to head into another short break. But when we return, we meet up with an industry stalwart who plays mentor to our SME and mid-sized company of this episode. Stay tuned to the Emerging India series. Welcome back. You're watching the Emerging India series. It's often said that experience is a cruel teacher because it gives the test first and the lesson afterwards. But what if you had someone giving you some private tuitions? Well, on the Emerging India series, Sumit Lakhotia put forth the stories of our SME and mid-sized company to a mentor and asked him to guide them on the way ahead.
Playing mentor on this episode is the founder and CEO of Mahindra Reva Electric Vehicles, Chetan Maini. With over 2 decades of experience in developing electric and solar-powered vehicles, he serves as a perfect guide to our two companies.
Mr. Maini, tell me, how did you start off in 1994 with the Reva, and how did that idea come up, and what were some of the challenges that you faced at that time?
Well, I think the idea germinated in around 1990 when I had a chance to be part of a solar car team that raced across the US and later across Australia, where we came third in the world. And I think traveling a distance of 3,200 kilometers in sun energy, for me, was a big eye-opener. The fact that you could generate your own energy, the fact that it was clean, and you could cross an entire country was great. I think for me, the idea of what this could do in India was very powerful. And a few years later, that started the birth of a Reva Electric Car Company, which today is Mahindra Reva.
What were the first hurdles that you faced while you were trying to launch this company?
Well, let's look back at that time, right? I think neither was climate change an issue, and oil was at $20 a barrel. So neither was energy security a challenge globally. So I think at a time of that was the context was very different, and so it was even more challenging. I think the first key area was looking at technology, because technology wasn't ready. So a lot of focus of how do you create next generation technologies. We filed for many global patents on how you manage energy. Getting a team together, I could find no one who had electric vehicle experience. building people with the passion and then making them come together to deliver something new was very important. As we moved and looked at India's space, getting suppliers on board and convincing them, people really didn't see this business. Getting financial investors to say, would I want to put money in this business? Question often asked is, where else in the world is this? And then why are you now doing this? It won't work. And the whole idea of can India lead in a product development thing was not really, heard. And there are a lot of government challenges and organizational challenges. I think when we launched in 2001, a month before we launched, subsidies for electric cars were removed and taxes for electric cars were doubled and regular cars came down. Looking back at it, I think each of those challenges in some way was an opportunity for us to reinvent ourselves and make us stronger and make us more global company. So I look at them as parts of the growing pains of any organization.
Looking ahead, what are some of your future plans with the E2O and maybe any other new ventures that you're coming up with?
Well, for us, it's been a journey. And I think what we've been doing is, besides just doing the E2O, we've been trying to say, what does it take to get an ecosystem going? So over the last year, we've done several things to enable that to happen. So we had our Run on Sun technology, where with a 3 meter by 3 meter panel, you can get free energy for life. The whole idea of creating your own energy and giving you as a solution. So what has been happening is, besides the product, we're trying to say we need to create the ecosystem and the infrastructure that would enable green mobility to come in, right? And that's been one area. The other area has been looking at a host of new technologies. At the recent auto show, we showcased our Halo, a next generation sports car. We showcased our entry into Formula electric racing across the world. This is going to take the company to the next level of technologies. It's going to enable such technologies to come into our vehicles and our learnings for the last 20 years to go into such areas. So it's going to be this nice area of exchange of ideas and innovation that's going to allow us to take the next step.
What are your thoughts on the roles of SMEs in this space?
So I think it's a very exciting business for SMEs, because you've got this set of solutions in the green space globally that are very centered around challenges in the West, right? Your challenges in India are very different. And so therefore, here comes an opportunity where the solutions not necessarily are available. You could co-create and co-develop them. And as a result of that, probably create a new business model around this area. So you could take ingredients of what's happened globally, but probably structure that into India. And I think that's, to me, was a big advantage. Indian mindset in general is frugal. Indian mindset generally understands what it means to be affordable and using in our own way, our jugaad innovation. And I think that when you couple that and you say, green is not about being cool, it's nice to be cool, but green is also about conserving energy, which actually makes it more affordable and makes business sense, then I think you have a different solution. I think that's where I see SMEs playing a very large role, and it's creating these new business models which are Indian-centric with Indian affordable solutions.
Talking about awareness, earlier we met up with two companies in the green space, and one of them is AtteroRecycling, which handles e-waste. How would a layman consumer know about these? Because, for example, a computer manufacturer makes a computer, makes a laptop, I buy it, I use it for 5 years, then I go to the Raddiwala.
Right.
But I should ideally go to the e-waste recycling center. So how should this awareness be created in the consumer's mind?
So I think that's a very important aspect. And I think that very broadly, 3 things need to happen. 1 is the awareness. 2, is there a financial motivation to me on this, of looking at it? And 3, how easy it is for me to do. If I look at regular recycling, and if you have a container that had 3 boxes on it, and you says plastics go here and paper goes here, it takes you a second extra to do it. Your ease of doing it is very high, and so therefore the amount of recyclability is very high. So I think if we get these 3 right, I believe it can be happening. So is there a way to integrate the awareness that I'm doing the right thing, I'm getting a financial benefit, and it's very easy across companies, corporates, and other areas? I think there could be one area of probably opportunity.
The other company that we met with is called 21min16se. They've been exporting for the longest time, but recently now they've started focusing on the domestic market because of competition globally. Is that a good way to go ahead?
I think it's very important to have an India base. And I think if you're successful here, you're more likely to be successful globally. From our own learning experience, I think what is very helpful for us to have 2 different markets with two very different consumers. So when we had a European customer, he challenged us to innovate on a host of new technologies. And when we had an Indian consumer, he challenged us to get us the best value for money. Eventually, you could cross-pollinate these learnings because you were driven, your innovation and organization was driven through two different factors. So I think it's the right strategy because they will be driven from a global market very differently than they will be driven from a domestic market.
What is your message to the SMEs that are watching our show?
I think it's a long journey, and you know, each day is going to be different. For me, it's still a journey, and we continue to. It hasn't reached, I think, a destination. And I think that looking at the bigger picture, allowing the successes every day motivate you to move on a tough journey is important. And I think as young budding entrepreneurs, I know that was something that kept me going. And I think that's one area that I would say will help me a lot.
So be passionate and be in this for the long haul.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Maini, for joining us. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, that brings us to the end of this episode of Emerging India. Tune in next week as we profile another strong SME and mid-sized company and put their stories in front of a mentor. Until then, from the entire team, many thanks for watching.
Focus.